Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of Let's Talk Arsenal, our twice weekly series where I sit down with you guys and have a chat. The show's so good that it's got its own sponsor. We're going to get onto that in just a second, but thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And it's intending to be a great show. And we're going to have a chat with you guys for the next 45 minutes to an hour about Arsenal. We're going to talk a little bit about Bellerin and his documentary. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion about Arsenal's transfers and the outs and ins that could or probably won't be happening. But we're going to look into that as well, as always, with you at the forefront of the attention of today's show. So let's crack on with it. Now, as always, our Let's Talk Arsenal show is sponsored by Football Prizes, and this week's competition is still going strong. And it's interesting because there's only a few days left to get your tickets to possibly win the signed Patrick Vieira shirt. The link to the website is in the description. So far, 24 tickets have been sold. So if you buy a ticket, you're going to, at the moment, have 1 in a 25 chance of possibly winning a Vieira signed shirt with the certificate of authentication, if that's a word. I'm pretty sure it is. And yeah, you can get your hands on a Patrick Vieira signed shirt. It's almost too good to be true. And our members will be getting a chance to get a free ticket into the prize draw. So most of the members have already logged their interest, I suppose, in getting that free ticket. And if you have not yet and you are a member of the channel, you just need to go into the Discord server. This is for expert and TGT ambassadors, and these are global. This isn't just for UK. If you are anywhere in the world, you can enter this competition. But for expert and TGT ambassadors, go into the Discord server, go onto the prizes channel, and put your number in to possibly be in with the chance of earning a free ticket into the prize draw, which will be revealed on Friday at 7:30. So the free ticket will be given away at 5 o'clock on our 5 p.m. Let's Talk Arsenal show. Anyway, let's crack on. We'll revisit that at the end of the show and give you some more details in regards to that. So let's talk about the Hector Bellerin documentary. And if you're wondering why I'm wearing a coat, it's because it's bloody cold in this house, and I'm not wasting any money putting the heating on when I can put a jacket on. That's where I'm at. I remember the days where people used to say Tom's minted. Well, this is what I have to do to save money, is wear a jacket indoors because it's so cold. Anyway, let's talk about the documentary, which if you have seen, great. If you haven't, maybe you want to come back after you've watched it. Or you just want to throw your thoughts in. I'd love to get your thoughts in the chat about what you thought about it if you have seen it. So if you are worried about spoilers, I'm not going to exactly say anything that you don't already know. I will try not to ruin things as best I can. But obviously, if you want to try and avoid anything, then maybe come back and watch the video a little bit later. Ed Welch says, I'm only on episode 4. No massive spoilers. He comes back. I'll be real with you. I'm sorry. Spoiler alert. He comes back. It's not like it's some Marvel Endgame film where I can ruin the ending. You know what happens. You know what happens. But I really enjoyed it in terms of the production value and what was going through it. As someone who, and it's a running joke in our group chat, I know, but as someone who has suffered an ACL injury myself and has gone through that process over a much more prolonged and more difficult period for me, because, I mean, to give you some insight into my injury, when I was at university in Nottingham is when I did it, and Nottingham Hospital lost my MRI to the point where I had to have another MRI done back when I came home to Kent, where I live, and it was just a whole palaver. And it finally got sorted a few years back. Had the surgery down near where I live, and 2 and a bit years after the actual incident, I was cured, if you want to call it cured. It's never the same again, really. But I've never had any issues since. I've been quite lucky. It's just the ankles that are going now. But the knee is good. But in regards to kind of watching Bellerin's journey, it was interesting, and it was kind of intriguing that there was kind of an emphasis on like the mental side of it, which I can understand if it's your job and you're used to be out there in training. But that didn't really come across to me. That didn't really come across to me that much, like the mental side of things with Bellerin. He seems pretty chirpy for most of the doc. I didn't really see any kind of real, like, him being a bit done in and upset. And yes, obviously it's a tough process, but for me, I didn't really see anything in that documentary that made me go, oh wow, I feel sorry for this guy. It just seemed pretty chill, to be honest. He got to go off and do his fashion stuff, which, by the way, I have no problem with, and I know a lot of people do for whatever reason. People are allowed their own personal lives. So yeah, I didn't really get that whatsoever. That's not to take away from the quality of the documentary. I enjoyed the comeback episodes when he gets onto the pitch for the first time. I enjoyed hearing things, hearing from Rob Holding, hearing from Kieran Tierney, watching him inside the training ground with the surgeon in Barcelona. That was really quite cool to hear what they were saying and talking about, and how he went through that process. They, I think, did the operation whereby they take part of his tendon in his hamstring, which is the same as what I have done. The other way of having it done is that you take a cadaver, someone who has passed and donated their ACL. Not specifically, they donate their entire bodies. They're not. It's not just like little ACLs they're picking up from random people that have passed away. These are people that obviously have donated their remains and are used for like transplants and stuff like that. But you can get it done. Like a friend of mine who I used to be work with at a school when we were teachers, he had the cadaver ACL and has since redone his ACL and ruptured it again. So I feel like I've done it. I've been quite lucky to have it the right way, how I perceive it to be the right way, where they take some of your hamstring tendons and twist them and sculpt them into a new ACL, which actually becomes a little bit more elastic than the original ACL. Ligaments are quite stiff, whereas tendons are a bit more elastic. So arguably my left knee's now better than my right knee. So who knows at this stage? But yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoyed it. And I don't really see the the criticism of him, to be honest. Kian says, mine was the meniscus, but still same process. Huge respect for Bellerin, but even more after watching the documentary. Ed says, just goes to show how impressive it is to come back from recurring injuries. Think about how many times a player like Royce has had to go through that. When you think of Royce, you think of Wilshere just signed for Bournemouth, and wish him the absolute best, Wilshere, Jackie boy, at Bournemouth, and hope he can really get his career back on track. But one of the things that we noticed, and the main thing I kind of took away from the documentary, was how afterwards and how after he comes back, again, he's on the bench. And some games, Mainsley plays at right back, or then we sign Cedric. And there's some games that Bellerin, like we saw yesterday in the game against Newcastle, Cedric plays to give Bellerin that rest. Because you're still not, and what they actually said was in the documentary is for between 12 and 18 months after your comeback. So you have the surgery, 6 to 9 months afterwards, you do your rehab and you come back and you play. But then a year and a half after your actual comeback, within that time frame, you're still not fully recovered and you're still not like fully adjusted to playing again. And that's mad. And when you think about how we've seen kind of Holding and Chambers and Bellerin struggle at times coming back from their injuries, Chambers to a lesser extent, because we're still kind of seeing him gradually come back into the fold. You've then been able to see that struggle. And it makes sense now that maybe we've not seen the same Hector Bellerin that we had done prior to his injury against Chelsea. Lord says, all I found out was that Bellerin lost his pace. Even Tierney is quicker than him right now. Tierney is quick. I think that it kind of gets... I think it's understated a bit how quick Tierney actually is. Lewis says, not seen it, but Charles Watts said he liked Bellerin more as a person after watching it. Might give it a watch. Are you going to watch the Cedric documentary? He was out for nearly as long as he was when he first signed. I mean, if he does a documentary, I'll watch it. But it's just this Cedric cult that's forming in the chat box these days. Owen says, have no issue with him doing things outside of football, but it felt like he wanted people to feel sorry for him. I struggled to feel sorry for him when loads of people with much less do the same. Hard to put my full view across in such a short message. I think I caught you and Mike and Wayne talking about this yesterday, and obviously it carried over into the chat. But I didn't really get the point of view about, and Wayne highlighted the point that Bellerin tweeted out about his documentary yesterday after we won, and he hasn't tweeted out anything regarding the game. I mean, he didn't play. He was on the bench for the whole game. And I'm sure his PR team, which will have an element of control over his social media as well, will have tweeted out the documentary. I think people have read a little bit too much into that, because if that was the case, Aubameyang, when we were going through our really hard period, was pretty much silent. Like, we didn't hear a thing from him really during these really tough times when his performances were bad. Does that mean we now have to be done with Aubameyang? I don't think many people are. I think people that are fully behind Aubameyang, maybe they're treating Bellerin slightly differently. So I thought the documentary, being someone who's gone through that, didn't show off us wanting to feel sorry for Bellerin. And in fact, I thought the documentary very much didn't make me feel that way. It didn't make me feel that way at all. It actually kind of gave me more, the way I perceived it, as someone who has had the injury myself, is an interest in looking in the process of how it goes through in kind of a professional athlete, and how the athlete side of things differs from how I experienced it. I didn't get a feeling that he wanted me to feel sorry for him at all from the documentary whatsoever. Gary says, shows how well Perez came back after his injury as well. It did. Sam says, I think if someone has an issue with the documentary, it's fair to say they are being biased on this one. I think there might be an element. I think that you still are allowed opinion of being critical of it. It's opinions at the end of the day. But I find it difficult. I find it difficult to formulate a negative opinion of him after watching the documentary in full. Because it was very open and honest. It was very kind of revealing, and I didn't feel like Bellerin was being fake in any of it as well, at all, to be honest. Ariane says, Tom dressed as if he's about to do a GQ photo shoot. I mean, that might be the nicest thing you've ever said, Ariane. I said, I'm cold. I'm wearing a jacket. It's cold in the house. I'm saving money. Matthew says, being quiet about yourself as opposed to a product you're promoting is different. I mean, flesh that out, Matthew, so I can understand what you mean a bit more. Vinny says, Bellerin's game is purely based on his pace. His defensive positioning is poor and his crossing isn't great. I can only see him getting worse with age. We base our attack. Vinny, I don't necessarily agree with that, because you look at the performance he put in against Crystal Palace. The defensive side of his game was excellent. It was the best defensive game I've seen from Bellerin against Crystal Palace. And in the games leading up to that, he also was good defensively. Prior to the bad run that we went on, he was very poor. But in the good games that we've been playing defensively, he has been one of the really kind of key elements of that. This is hilarious. Really kind of getting on the back of this. Daryl Price says, disappointing with negative comments. The documentary showed the hard work and the love he has for Arsenal. Also, his speed was a main ingredient, and he needs to overcome a change in his play, which I think is a really good way of putting it. Lord says, what about feeling apathetic to the whole situation? I don't. Regarding who, Lord? Like, who do you think is being apathetic in this situation? Big Selt says, I'm done with Bellerin as a footballer. These documentaries just create a positive bias around the player. I will steer clear. That's a shame. I came out feeling like that I not necessarily knew Bellerin more. I guess that you do know him more after watching it. It was also great hearing what Rob Holding and Tierney had to say about Bellerin as a player, and that should make you feel better about him as a person. If you are avoiding watching the documentary because you're afraid that there might be a bias towards him as a person, I think that says more about you than it does necessarily Bellerin. Because if you feel that you aren't going to watch it because you're worried that it's going to portray Bellerin in a good way, bearing in mind he's a player of the club that you support, I would be concerned about the way that you perceive a player in the team personally. Because surely if you are just an Arsenal fan, it would interest you as an Arsenal fan to know what happens behind the scenes for a player that gets treatment from within the club, because it doesn't just open you up to Bellerin's life, it opens you up to the whole process of a professional athlete going through that process. And if you're avoiding watching it because of your view of Bellerin, that's personal. Like, that's you having a personal problem with him as a human being, as a person. That's nothing to do with his footballing ability. You can be critical of his footballing ability, but if you are not going to watch it based upon him as a person, that's personal. And I don't know what Bellerin has done to personally insult you and personally make you not want to watch something because he is in it. But I'm not really sure what he could have done. Because if it's his performances, then you've got to take that away. Like, you've got to, as a person, you should separate what he does on the pitch with how you feel about him as a person, because they're two different things. Me being critical of someone on the pitch is different from how I'm critical of someone they are as a person. Like, Granit Xhaka, for instance, has done things that make me dislike him as a person for some of his actions. Like, whilst I'm very defensive of Xhaka's quality as a player, because I feel that he gets underrated at times and he does things that people don't necessarily see, but has been horrific at the start of the season, has only begun to turn things around. The whole throwing the armband on the ground and telling the fans to F off, that made me dislike him as a person because of his attitude. Him throttling a player when we desperately need to keep 11 men on the pitch, that makes me dislike him as a person because of his actions. Hey, feel free to tell me in the chat, but he has never done anything but said how much he loves Arsenal Football Club, how much he wants to fight for the football club, and how much he cares about the football club. That I don't know what you can dislike. I don't know what you can dislike, to be honest, about him as a person. As a footballer, go for the hills, like go for gold on your criticisms as a player. That's completely fine. But as a person, I really kind of struggle to get that, if you know what I mean. I'd love to get your thoughts on that for sure. Cookie Monster says people have watched DT and hate Bellerin because of it. Bellerin has quality. That's why teams want to buy him and not Cedric. I mean, whatever you think of DT, and hate Bellerin because of it. I don't know. I don't. You might need to elaborate on that, because I haven't seen what DT has said about that, so I don't know. I can't really comment. Archie says, Tom, has Alba proved you wrong after last night? You were calling for him to be dropped. I felt first half against Palace, he looked hungry, but Palace kept him quiet. Yes, I think he has, Archie. I think he certainly did kind of prove me wrong. And during the game, I was saying that before he scored, I was saying maybe we should sub him off for Martinelli if we're gonna kind of struggle to score, and keep Lacazette on because I think he's working harder. And I was completely wrong about that. So fair play to Alba for turning it round for sure. Lewis says there's an element of cynic for me. Cynic in me. Does the doc elevate him beyond him just being a normal player, brand Bellerin, to replace brand Ozil? I mean, footballers are beyond themselves these days, a brand, and there are very, very few kind of players on that level that will not have their own brand. And I have utter respect for footballers that do build their own brand, because from knowing some players that have now retired, and knowing from speaking to them and how the struggle that they had after their career finish to try and adjust to life, adjust to a career after the game, because not all footballers, go into coaching, go into punditry, go into something to do with the game. Not all footballers do that because they aren't given the route and there aren't as many opportunities. There's a lot more footballers than there are jobs in the sport. And so what is wrong with a player wanting to build a brand to protect their value after they retire? What is wrong with that? What is wrong with Mesut Ozil doing that? What is wrong with Hector Bellerin doing that? There's nothing wrong with that. Their careers are short, and they've got to have something after football for them to go to. So I have no problem. And yes, I'm sure the documentary probably did do in part enhance the Bellerin brand, if you want to call it that. But it wasn't posted on like the Arsenal channel. It was posted on Hector Bellerin's channel. So it's his thing. You have a choice to watch it, and if you don't want to watch it, that's absolutely fine. But I maintain that if you don't want to watch it because of a personal dislike of Bellerin, I would question why. Why would you feel that? Because I don't think Bellerin's done anything for me that makes me think that would make me dislike him as a person. He's done things that I think are understandable as to why people might dislike him as a player, but not necessarily as a person. Dave says, I've only watched the first episode and it all seems pretty insightful as a piece about a career-threatening injury, not about look at me sort of effort. Yeah, that's how I got from it. That's definitely how I got it. Let's scroll up and see what you guys think. Balaji says, love Bellerin just for being one of the first to call out the negative vibes surrounding AFTV. Okay. Oh, I didn't really think about this. This is when he did the talk at Oxford and he spoke about AFTV, didn't he? Now, before I go any further into that, because obviously we've got friends who work for AFTV, like Lee does. Let me just see if I can find the quotes. Okay, so I don't think there's players who go on the internet to watch that. It does sometimes pop up on your timeline. I see it sometimes. Some friends say, oh, have you heard what that guy on AFTV said? It's so wrong for someone who claims to be a fan and their success is fed off a failure. How can that be a fan? There's just people hustling, trying to make money their way, which everyone is entitled to do. Now, this gets into obviously very sensitive territory. If you dislike Bellerin based off of those comments, I want to try and say this the right way, because obviously it's. Let me put the comments up on the screen for you, and let's have a discussion about it. That's probably the best way to do it. It's on the Independent that I'm doing it. I'm trying to get rid of this ads and stuff. Come on, get rid of the ads and then I can show it. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. And now let me share the screen so you can see it. Okay. So I don't think there's players who go on the internet to watch that. Arsenal Fan TV. It does sometimes pop up on your timeline. I see it sometimes. Some friends say, oh, have you heard what that guy said on AFTV? It's so wrong for someone who claims to be a fan and their success is fed off a failure. How can that be a fan? There's just people hustling, trying to make their money, which everyone is entitled to do. Now, I'm not really going to sit here and put my personal view of the channel or like up into the ether. People know kind of how I feel about things and how some things are done and the way things are portrayed and the whole profiting off a loss. Remember that. But I think ultimately some individuals are responsible for some of the things that they've said or done on there. I try and stay as separate as feasibly possible whilst maintaining good friendships with people like Lee. And I would never not have someone on because of my personal views on another channel. I wouldn't not have someone on if I'm friends with them, if I respect them, if I like them. If they go onto a channel that I don't like, that doesn't change how I view them in any way. And that's kind of the thing that we've always done with TGT, is that you've always kind of seen, I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. You've probably seen people that have come on the channel, that have gone on to do their own thing, that have left the channel, that have never come back on again and gone elsewhere. That doesn't change my view. As long as there's nothing personal or anything's gone down between myself and them that I felt was disrespectful, I've never had an issue with that at all, whatsoever. Because I don't own anyone that goes on to this pod. Like, I don't own anyone, and everyone's entitled to do their own thing. And fair play. Like Owen, for instance, was signed up as a member, came onto the channel, has now got his own channel, now does stuff with Mike and Andy. Fair play to Owen, like for going off and doing his own thing, and that's great. And I would implore, there are so many Arsenal channels, it's very, very difficult to find your way in this convoluted soup. But in regards to Hector Bellerin saying those words, and I don't think you should dislike Bellerin for saying that, because that's his opinion on something which is and has happened. Like, they are like, and not just them. There's no point me just highlighting that. This is a channel that makes revenue. This is a show that has a sponsor on this show. This is my job. And Arsenal, when they lose, right, typically what you find is on a lot of channels, and this is just the way of the world, unfortunately, because if we're being kind of real, humans in general love drama. Absolutely love drama. Loves to see people in pain. Love to see people embarrass themselves. Love to see people get angry. It's the way of the world. It is how it is. That when Arsenal lost, during the period that Arsenal were losing, and I was quite angry and quite emotional, quite a few more people watched the show than would watch the show when we won. Now, what I don't think is that this channel specifically is kind of doing things in a way which tries to create viewership based upon negativity. And I hope that you in the chat box have always kind of felt, as loyal listeners of the channel, that we have done things here as positively, as supportive, as educational, as informative, as feasibly possible. And that I have tried my utmost to, when taking on the channel, turn it into something which it is now, and to just be the positive kind of outlook and supportive and questionable, still criticizing when necessary, but as positive as feasibly possible. So, and I hope that you kind of see that, if that makes sense. Please tell me if you don't, and if you think that we are doing things in the wrong way, then let me know. Sam, thank you so much for the donation. It's a good timing. But I appreciate it, mate. If you are here, you can smash a like. Thanks, Sam. You're an absolute legend. I appreciate your support as always. Omar says, Daryl, relax. Just one game. Stop getting carried away. I stand by what I said. What did Daryl say? What's Daryl and Omar going at it in the chat? Fight. Jay Kocho says, I love AFTV. I think there is sensationalism on both sides. I think being critical gets called negative just because it's an opposition. Have some personalities been over dramatic? Probably. But I think when AFTV never gets credit for being positive either, I think ultimately you kind of dig the grave that you have, in that there's been a lot of negativity before. I remember when it was kind of at the start and it was just about fans. I think it went down in one direction, and that's why I kind of have the views I have. I've also not been credited before for quotes that have gone out, and I've had to message them to get creditation after something that I've created and made wasn't credited, which didn't help at all. I know that there's been issues with other people, but I'm not at liberty to talk about that. And I'm not going to. Just talking from a personal experience, I personally have never had any positive kind of run-ins with it myself. And so that's why I have the view that I have. I'm not going to go into details, but beyond what I already have said, but that's why I have the view I have. And maybe that makes me biased. Maybe. And if you very much like it, then that's up to you. I'm not gonna dislike you for liking it. You do what you want to do in your own time. But I feel like we've gone off on a huge tangent away from what Bellerin said. So kind of going back to that, if that is the only reason for you not liking Bellerin, I would question that personally. Dave says, during the tail end of the Wenger years, there was an intense negativity about the direction of the club, and AFTV rode that wave. I think the realism on TGT is far more engaging. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that very, very much. Now, what I will say is that towards the end of the Wenger era, there were definitely shows that we had that I remember and that had personalities that I'm no longer associated with, that were very much against Arsene Wenger. And I think the channel has kind of grown. And also, when I took this channel over in 2016, I was 22. And now I look at 22 as still very young. And I certainly would have, I think I would have looked back. And if I could look back on the shows, and now a lot of the videos aren't on here anymore, because I've kind of just modernized it and I've wanted to clip it to make it the TGT, the modern day TGT that it is today, with all of the graphics and the designs and the professionality around it, because it becomes effectively a bit of a portfolio for myself in the world of work that I'm in. So I think that ultimately, where am I going with this? That I would have said things before that I certainly wouldn't agree with me saying now, because when I was younger, I was more impressionable. I would have been more open to other people's opinions, whereas now I'm very much more headstrong in kind of my own. But in other aspects, I definitely would have been. There are times that I look back on some of the conversations that I've had on Twitter and gone, what the hell, Tom, were you talking about? Like, you were rude to people. And I probably was rude to people in some instances. And I think I've looked back on some of those discussions and learned from those to try and be a little bit more open to discussion, open to my opinion being changed and stuff like that. And the thing is with Arsenal and social media as well, and the videos that we do, is that I know a lot of you guys that watch the channel will be quite young, and that you'll watch this, and when you're my age, in 26, or when you're older, or when you're like 70, like Dave. No, I'm only kidding, Dave. Then you'll look back on some of the opinions that you had very, very differently, and you'll look back and think, what the hell was I talking about? You'll go, why the hell did I say that? And that's the kind of the curse of social media, especially this, and why I kind of do plan to privatize videos after 2 years or so, because how I feel now compared to how I would have felt 2 years ago would be very different. I don't plan on having videos on the channel, bar the educational ones, sticking around for much longer than a year, 2 years, because my opinion would have changed so much that the podcast that I did 2 years ago is only going to be there to kind of as kind of a bat to hit me with, if that makes sense. I've always kind of said that Twitter and social media, Twitter should delete tweets after a certain amount of time, because people's opinions change, and you don't want to be defined by the person that you were 2 years ago on social media, if that makes sense. Did Dave respond to me? I want to see if he did. Omar says, Tom, I didn't agree with his comment at the time, but it's his opinion, so it is what it is, which is exactly, it's a really nice kind of way to look at that. Is if you didn't agree with what Bellerin was saying, don't take that personally. Just go, I don't really agree with what you said there, Bellerin, but it's not going to change the way I think about you as a person, because I don't think he necessarily didn't abuse anyone. He didn't insult anyone. He was kind of, I feel that he was fairly kind of bang on with some of the things he said, but maybe not in the broader context of the channel as kind of a whole. Usopp said, I try to watch all of the Arsenal fan cams I can. To me, when I read what Hector says, is that the fans should never be able to be mad at the team losing. AFTV most viewed shows are after wins. Facts. I mean, that's great. And you'd hope that it would. I'd hope, and I really want there to be more people that tune in for wins and for positive stuff. That's all I want, is the fan base to be kind of as one and together, which is why when you had personalities calling out Arteta before he'd even got going, before he'd even been given a chance, and that we were trying to create this divide again, I just really kind of, and that's why I was so against that at the time and so willing to call that out, because it's so divisional, if that's a word, like to break apart the fan base once again, that you're either with him or you're against him, and that you will not entertain the opinion of the opposite side. The opposite side's opinion does matter, as long as it's not hyperbolic and abusive. And that's why I remember me and Owen sat on this show specifically, on Let's Talk Arsenal, a few weeks back when things were very, very different. And Owen was very much of the opinion that was different to mine, that he was quite happy to see Arteta be moved on by the club. And I was very much the opposite, to see, I think we should stick it out for the moment unless things got really, really bad. you should be able to have two sides of an argument. And as soon as you start saying, I mean, I saw someone tweet Mems today. Mems was a TGT OG back in the day. Are you Arteta in or out? Why should someone ask that? Why should someone feel that it's necessary to ask that question? Why do you have to be one or the other? Why can't we just be Arsenal fans? That's what I don't ever get, is why can't we just be Arsenal fans? Yeah. Divisive. Thank you, Tom. That's the word I wanted. Owen says, basically what you're saying, Tom, is we all need to be hippies. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I just think you need to be open to other people's opinions. That's all I think you need. And sometimes I am very, very much a hypocrite, because sometimes I get very defensive of my views. So I'm a complete hypocrite at times, and I am guilty of my own criticisms, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with saying one thing and then acting a different way briefly, because I'm flawed, as everyone is. We're all flawed. No one's perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. So it's just what those mistakes are that will ultimately define you. Are they the mistakes where you go and tell Arteta to... I'm not going to repeat what they said. Those sort of things will define you ultimately, as the fan that you are, as the personality you are, as the crowd that you attract as well. I'm very lucky because I've got you guys and you're all awesome. So, and that's just ultimately, I hope, the way in which we have grown the channel, for sure, into a very positive thing. Where's the pillow? For Pello, I see you asking a question, and you're always kind of the flip side to my view, so I appreciate it. I can't find it. We'll have to go somewhere else. Javier says, TGT educates us about Arsenal wins and losses, transfer moves. There are criticism for Arsenal and optimism, but fair points, and no overreaction from guests or Tom. That's why I like TGT and watch it. Thank you, Javier. Much appreciate that. Jack says, I'm a fan of TGT and certain members of AFTV, like Lee Judges and Robbie, but not the rest. And that's fair enough. You don't have to like everyone. You don't have to like everyone. Chris says, a bunch of us are older than Tom. Respect your elders. I do respect them, mate. A lot of people are still older than me. A lot of people are still older than me. Marco says, I've called Robbie out countless times for not having moderators on his live streams. This is something that I am in agreement with you, Marco, that there should be. And I have seen some of the horrible, derogatory, discriminatory comments, and they're not dealt with. And I know that it's difficult. I know that it's difficult with the volume of viewers that there are. But with the amount of kind of revenue that it generates, I feel that if I was ever to get the channel to a point, which I don't expect it to, because I don't think I run the channel in a way which promotes kind of huge growth. I just kind of run it in the most legitimate, grounded way that I can. But hypothetically, say that this was to get hundreds of thousands of subs, which I'm not expecting it to. And to be honest, I kind of like the situation that we're all in right now and the community that we've built here, and the members that come onto the channel. But hypothetically, if it was to get to that stage and it was like you had thousands of people watching the live shows and it became very, very difficult, I feel that because of the revenue that could be earned by a channel of that size, you should be able to employ people to moderate the chat. Going on to Hugh's channel, I know that Hugh has his own moderators. He's got DJ in the chat, if you've watched on the watch-alongs, and moderates things. And he's very busy at times moderating things. It's just, for me, like, that's where I'm at. I'm fortunately, I say fortunately, is that the hundreds of people that watch the show, I can kind of manage that at the moment. And I know a lot of you in the chat box, especially the members, do call out people in the chat when they are being abusive or when they are spamming, and I can react to it because thankfully StreamYard does let me do things now where I can block people, time people out on the shows, which is great. Gives me more control. So, but yeah, that's certainly something I agree with and think that it should be definitely looked into, moderating the live channels so that people become more responsible for their actions, for sure. Chris says, I can't wait for international football to start again in March. Chris, why are you bringing the mood down, bro? Why are you bringing the mood down? Austin says, us Arsenal fans have to admit that we act immature and the in-house fighting is embarrassing. Some of it is embarrassing, yeah. Some of it I think is really embarrassing. I think some people get thrown under the bus as well, which is not ideally what you want. Cookie says TGT is better informed and is closer community. AFT has some good members, but it reflects the views of Arsenal fans, even if they are ill-informed and toxic. That's sometimes how I feel as well, is that I feel that the views of the bigger side of things and the big channels can sometimes get, what's the right word of putting it? It can sometimes look representative of the whole fan base, which is, is kind of misleading. It's 100. It's not even kind of misleading. It's 100% misleading, because I know that 9 times out of 10, the loudest people are usually the most negative people, because those loud, abusive, and I'm not saying this is anyone specifically, but just in general, the loudest, abusive, most dramatized views are usually the ones that you get seen the most, because they get the retweets, they get the attention, they get the views. So that's why it's sometimes when things go viral, it's not usually for a good thing. It's not usually for a good thing. That's why when I'm wrong on the channel about Cedric, which happened yesterday, is I like to do like a small skit about it or a joke about it or take the mick out of myself about being wrong about Cedric. And I hope that gets people watching. And that's what people tune in for, is that they know I'm going to react in a funny way if I'm wrong. And I'm going to try and entertain people if I'm wrong, not turn around and tell someone they're a you-know-what. So, like, whilst that might get more views, I just want to kind of do it a more legitimate way, if that makes sense. Let's scroll. I know a lot of you are posting comments. Sapello says, AFTV has given the platform to a lot of channels on YouTube and has given a lot of people a career on YouTube. I feel like we are disrespecting AFTV now. And I think there's a fine line you have to cross between when you are disrespecting something and when you're being critical of something. And it has provided, it's certainly opened the door. I don't think TGT, I don't think this would exist. It definitely wouldn't exist without Arsenal Fan TV. This, what I'm doing right now, if Arsenal Fan TV didn't exist, this would not be happening. It opened the door. It opened the floodgates for loads of channels. Craig, when he started this channel, had the likes of DT, Troops, and the guys on. Were regulars on here. And when I took over, we still had people on. Lee Judges still comes on to this day. Kenny came on for a long, long time. But gradually you move on. You move on from things. Things move on to do their own thing. I don't think we're being disrespectful. I think that we're very kind of appreciative that opened the doors, but also we can be critical at the right times. And yeah, I think I don't feel like we've gone down that route today. I don't feel like we've been critical at all. Pablo says, you're doing a great job. Probably the only channel where where everyone respects each other into the chat and you can have an opinion. Thank you, mate. That's kind of that's definitely the vibe I want to create. For sure. And you did fantastic on the pod the other day, Pablo, as well. Vinny says the TGT Discord chat is such a nice break from the internet trolls that have an enjoyable debate about all things Arsenal. The Bellerin Cedric debate yesterday was hilarious during the game. it was great. Yes. I mean, you say it was great. It was basically me getting pummeled for 45 minutes. That's what it was. Our Discord server is amazing. If you'd like to join the Discord server, it's open for our expert members and our TGT ambassadors, as well as the expert and exclusive content too. So yeah, join up as a member and help to support the channel and join the community. Pan Rasta says, regardless of AFTV, Bellerin, or any other podcast, some people need to have thicker skin when looking at these shows. It's either you agree or don't. Stop the immaturity. End of. One thing you need to do a channel is thick skin. Now, I am human still, and I am certainly, and I appreciate all of the positive comments. But what I hope that you get from me is honesty all the time. And when you get a negative comment, and I have to delete quite a lot of comments off the videos because unfortunately they are abusive or they are put across in a very condescending or patronizing way that I don't feel is in keeping with the environment that we promote at TGT. if you want to disagree with my opinion, I encourage it. I encourage you to have a different opinion to me and put that into the comments and explain to me why you think my opinion is wrong and why you think that you are right, and explain yourself and tell me why. But you do need to have a thick skin, because no one likes to be told they're wrong. I don't like being told that I'm wrong. And that's why me and Drew get into a lot of debates, because we tell each other that we're wrong all the time because we have different views on different subjects. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. I feel like we're going to talk about this a little bit later on the podcast. Drew, unfortunately, I have to say he can't make it unless there's any last minute changes. He had something come up. But me and French are going to be about at 8:30 tonight on the podcast, having a chat about things. And we probably will talk about social side of things, because we like doing that on the show. We like talking about Arsenal social media. Pam Rasta wants to clarify, saying, I don't mean you, Tom. I just the viewers. I know that. I know what you're saying, Pam Rasta, and I was just kind of get to that point, is that you need to have a thick skin to do a channel. You need to have a thick skin to be on Twitter. You need to have thick skin to get involved in the community of Arsenal in general, because there is so much negativity. There's so much abuse and so much hatred amongst a lot of the Arsenal fans that are the most vocal specifically, that if you are going to be on here, you're going to get abused. You are going to get negative comments. You are going to get people telling you what you are wrong in a horrible, horrible way. That is going to happen. And if I didn't have thick skin, I wouldn't still be here. I wouldn't still be doing this channel. And you can kind of react to it in two ways. You can either do what I feel we do here, is either you block, mute, move on, or you can be abusive back, which is never the way that you should go about it, ever. Ever, ever, ever. So that's just kind of it. Chris, I don't even know what that word is. You know, do some research now. Thibaut Pesk says, respect to AFTV, but some of them are just glory-seeking egomaniacs who use club to promote themselves. TGT promotes Arsenal and Flying Fish. That's why we love it here. Now, I'm not going to get personal about people specifically. So yeah, you know, Mika says, I've seen DT get abused for backing Arteta. Now, as I say, I don't always agree with DT. I've had plenty of conversations with DT in person and on the channel and elsewhere previously. Haven't spoken for quite a long time now, which is nothing personal. Just haven't spoken in a long time. And he has backed Arteta from what I've seen on the videos. Fair play to him, especially kind of in the environment that they're in. I think it's brave, but fair play. And yeah, he has got abuse for it, and it's a real shame that he has. I don't think. I'm not saying that I think that they're perfect people, but you never kind of justify abuse. No opinion justifies abuse. There's an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, is what some might say. So yeah, if someone abuses you, block them, mute them, move on. It's not worth your time. It's really not worth your time. If it's just not worth it. It's really not. Have an opinion, just move on with your life. You don't agree with what someone says, move on. And I know that in the past, I certainly haven't followed my own advice with that. I know that I certainly haven't followed my own advice, and I've entertained the abusers at times. But it's different now, and we move forward and we move on. And yeah, in the other direction, Austin, I know what you're saying. I 100% agree with you. It's gone in the other direction as well. Big Celt says, I love Tom listening to Tom getting notifications. Therapy. It's just non-stop. It's just ding, 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 ding. It's constantly through. Which team will win tonight, says Patrick. Southampton or Shrewsbury? Fingers crossed Shrewsbury. It would be easier with Southampton. Fair play to, and good luck to Shrewsbury. Fingers crossed. I don't see it happening. But yeah. Balaji says, how do you get this thick skin? It usually happens over a long period of time, and you have to take a lot of abuse to be able to get it. Sometimes people build it up through school a lot. School wasn't great for myself. Didn't have the best of times. It got a lot better towards the end. First few years weren't great. But yeah, sometimes you build it up through that. You build it up through the people that you surround yourself with. If you're in a kind of banterous group of people, which if you know from watching our podcast with Mike and Andy, you know that we're in a bit of a banterous area, which I hate the word in general because I think it can get misconstrued. There is banter and then there's abuse, and they're two different things. But yeah, it's you build it up over time, Balaji, for sure, especially when you deal in the Arsenal world, as we do here. Dave's only you only just heard that. Oh, the irony. Is Yannick calling me out? Is that what he's doing, Owen? God, Tom, just fight with Yannick. He's crying out for it. What's he saying? What's Yannick saying in the chat? Yannick says, I'd prefer you be abusive back, but that's just me. Now, because Yannick, because I know it frustrates you. I know you'd love the confrontation, but I just know that deep down you hate the fact that I've won. You hate that. You hate it, Yannick. For sure. Oh, thank you, Marlon there. It is quite a nice jacket. It's from Zara, if you wanted to know. It's quite old, so I don't think they're making it anymore. Ed says, truth is, there are entirely too many Arsenal-based channels. People have to have strong feelings to get noticed. TGC aside, obviously. No, but to be honest, Ed, I don't think I'm immune to. I don't think I'm aside from that. I have put a lot of forthright views on the channel regarding players, regarding coaches, but I hope that it's been done in a certain way that's not abusive. I hope that it's come across that way, and I feel that you can get traction and you can get people watching in the right way. And I kind of try and do that through hard work, through providing tactical analysis, by providing you guys with journalists to talk with, by providing you ex-professional footballers to come on the show, tactics, analytics, graphics, all of that stuff. I hope that's how we grow the channel. I hope that's how we've got to the stage. I'm proud of the fact we've got over 20,000 subs now on the channel through doing it the right way. How I see it being done in the right way. This is how I perceive it to be done as best as possible. Now, I'm not saying that this way is the only way, and there are other ways to do it really, really well as well. But I like the way that we've grown TGT as we have, and the way that it has. Cookie says, sorry for causing a cautious discussion. This is what it's here for. This is what Let's Talk Arsenal is here for. This is what this show is about. It's just getting out. It doesn't necessarily have to be what happened in the game yesterday. We do that on the podcast, and we're going to do that later on at 8:30. But this is what this show is for on Tuesdays, Fridays, 5 o'clock UK time, every single week, barring scheduling. This is what we do. We sit and we chat and we discuss things for an hour. Big Celt, Deluded Gooner is level-headed content. It is. Deluded Gooner is a great lad who's come on the channel and had his say about things too. Exactly. And there are ways that things are being done. Other jackets are available from other retailers, says Dave. Yes, you can buy jackets from elsewhere. But I have had this jacket for years. So it is a fave, and it is cold, and that's why I'm wearing one. As I said earlier, I'm not going to waste time. Anyway, now what I've got, again, I just want to highlight that you can win a signed Patrick Vieira shirt. The link is in the description to our sponsors for today's show, which is Football Prizes, who are very, very grateful for sponsoring the channel. And our members can get a free ticket by entering the competition to win a free ticket on the Discord server in the Prizes channel. So if you are an expert member or a TGT ambassador and you haven't yet signed up in the raffle to get a free ticket, please do. But if you would like to enter anyway, currently, if we just refresh this, let's see how many people have gone in for it yet. So there are 24 tickets that have been sold. At the moment, if you were to buy a ticket now, you'd have a 1 in 25 chance, I believe, of winning a Patrick Vieira signed shirt. So, give it a go. The link is in the description. Check it out. We've got about 8 minutes left of the show. So if you've got any other questions or thoughts, then feel free. Chris says, Tom giving fashion advice would be the definition of comedy. Thanks, mate. Thanks. It's really nice of you, Chris. It's really, really nice of you to say that. Russ says, pay your heating bill, you tight git. To be fair, it's not just on me. I live with the other half, and if I put the heating on, I get a text because she's got it on her phone, so she knows when I've put the heating on, and I get told off because we should be saving money, and I should put a coat on. David Keith says, Tom, I look at a player like Iwobi and I am disgusted with the way that he was abused. I hope Emile Smith-Rowe does not have a spell like he did. Yeah, and the abuse of players is horrific. It's absolutely horrific. It's disgusting what some people think that because they have access to a player, they have the right to throw abuse towards them. It's horrible. It is utterly, utterly horrible. And I know that when I was younger, and this is why I'm more forgiving, is that when I was a kid, I definitely would have, between my mates, before social media was a thing, been like, oh yeah, he's this and he's that. And when you grow up and you look back and you think you were a real idiot when you were a kid and you should say some stupid things. But now you've got an older head on your shoulders and you go, yeah, the abuse is horrible. But in the way that you're understanding and go, they're kids. A lot of them are just kids. The big problem in the direction of these players, that's the big problem. Kids I can be more understanding about because you're not yet old enough and not yet mature enough to look back and go, yeah, that was stupid. I shouldn't have said that. But it's the adults that are doing it. That's when it's the really worrying thing. And that is still a very common thing, not just throughout the Arsenal fan base, but throughout plenty of fan bases. So yes, David, you're spot on. Ed says she's controlling the temperature and so it begins. Welcome to married life, my friend. She's been doing it for 8 years, Ed. We've been together for 8 years. She was controlling the heating in my own house before we even lived together. Thapello says, what do you think of Turkish Tom? He's one of my favorite YouTubers. I've not had too many discussions with Turkish, to be honest. I know that he does the really good show with Lee, and fair play to them. But no, I've genuinely not had too many. I've seen some of the things I don't agree with some of his points of view on certain players and the manager. But again, everyone's entitled to their opinion. As long as they explain it in a coherent way, that's absolutely fair play. Balaji says Tom's favourite rom-com is Soboslai. He's not wrong. Marco Bricks says, I'm sure that's just kind of a free advertisement for your bricklaying company, Marco. I'm sure that's what it is. Funny, isn't it? We have been searching for an Ozil-type player, and he was under our noses all this time regarding Emil Smith-Rowe. Dan says, can you get Turkish on the show, says Dan. I don't know, maybe we'll drop him a message. Maybe you guys should tweet him and be like, come on, TGD, have a chat. I'll be up for talking to him, for sure. Make it happen. Sam says, you could just move somewhere warm, like the Cayman Islands. I could do that, but I'm not that well off, unfortunately, Sam. I'd love to be able to go. Actually, no, to be honest, I'm actually more of a homeboy. My favorite time of year is winter. I like the cold. Believe it or not, even though I just spent the whole hour moaning about how cold I am, but I prefer winter to summer, personally. That's just me. It's a Lego reference. Oh, so you're advertising Lego, Marco. Juan says, Tom, if Arsenal would have played against Charlton, will you introduce your missus and do the preview show with her? Honestly, there is not many things that she would least like to do more than come on the show. She has actually been on the show once, and that's when I did the quiz a while back during the first lockdown. We did a charity quiz for the NHS, and we raised a few £100, which we were quite happy about. And she ran in because her parents were watching it, and they text her saying, we dare you to run in on camera and with a Charlton shirt on. And that's what she did. She ran in with a Charlton shirt on. So that video is there. So you can go find that. You can find that. So she has actually been on the show. No is the answer to that question. Dan says, are you going to watch Michael Elise versus Coventry? I'm actually going to watch the highlights of that game to have a look, because I've had about 10 people text me in the last week about doing a show on him, but we've not been linked as of yet. So yeah, Drew's asked me where you can find the documentary, so I'll have to link that to him at some point. Can you actually not watch it if you're in the US? Can you not watch the can you not do the if you're in the US, can you not watch the Bellerin documentary? Please let me know if you can't, because that sucks if you can't. I'm sure there's ways that you could watch it. Let's. How many minutes have we got left? A few more minutes. Let's get some other questions. Dan says, can I do another quiz? At the moment, Dan, it is so busy. And obviously, I want to try and fit some more members' podcasts on as well. It's just really tough at the moment. I've had a few people ask me about projects that they want to do, and I've had to really, unfortunately, say no because it's so busy right now that I'm kind of focusing on this stuff. But February, if we're still in lockdown, which I'm sure we will be in February when the games kind of calm down, maybe we'll have time for another quiz. But yeah, maybe, mate. We'll try and sort something out. Maybe we'll do like a members one night. We'll get as many members on as possible and do a members only show. Ben Fawcett says, do you think the fan base is focused on our defensive improvement enough? We are so more solid than last year. No, Ben, I don't think they are. I think they're sleeping on it. I really do. We've first time we've kept 5 clean sheets in a row in 11 years. It's absolutely insane. Really, really fantastic stuff. Balaji says, what about a tactical breakdown on Woodman and Odegaard? If we get linked to them more and if it looks like it's going to happen, I will put the time and effort into doing them. But they take so much time to put together with all the graphics and getting the expert insight. I only kind of do them now when I've got the time, and that is usually when we've really been linked to them heavily and it's worth me putting the effort in. That's why. That's why we did one on Mwepu, because I was writing an article on him anyway. It made sense to do that, and we were linked to him, and we did one on, obviously, with Aouar and players like that in the past, and Partey. So when in the summer is usually when we have more time because there's no games. I've got loads more time to put effort into tactical breakdowns, which I can't use. That is the time when I can do the tactical breakdowns. Thapello says, who is your current favourite Arsenal player? It kind of has to be Thomas Partey, to be honest, because I called for his signing for so long that, yeah, I'm still in awe that we got him. I'm still an absolute starstruck that we've got him. And I haven't yet got an Arsenal shirt with him on the back because I got the blue shirt, but I haven't got anyone on the back of that. So I think that I'm going to get Partey eventually when the shop's open again, put onto the back of that one. Will probably be the plan. I don't like the pink writing on the back of the blue shirt, so I think I'm going to get the Premier League writing. It's not that I don't like pink, otherwise I wouldn't have the show colours like I do for the backgrounds, like this one. I wouldn't have these colour backgrounds if I didn't like it. It's just I don't really like the pink lettering and numbering on the back of the shirt. That's why. Ed, thank you, Ed. Great article on Saliba, Tom. That's the stuff that makes this channel, even though that was on 101. And I plan on kind of turning that article into a tactical breakdown before the weekend. I might make that tomorrow's show, actually. Actually, yes, that is exactly what I'm going to do tomorrow morning, because obviously my shift is in the evening. I'm at a funeral in the afternoon. So in the morning, I will be putting together a Saliba tactical breakdown on the 3 games that he has played so far for Arsenal, based upon the article that I did. So that'll be out tomorrow morning, actually. Texas Gunner says, afternoon, gents. Big one yesterday. Good to see Tom buzzing on the reaction show. Beats. Oh, Jesus. I really should sometimes read these fully. I know what that's in reference to because you said if we didn't win, that was the forfeit, which is hilariously stupid. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Texas, always doing it. Anyway, that's going to round it off for today. If you have enjoyed the show, please drop a like on the video. I really appreciate all the hard work that you guys always tune in. And I do consider it hard work that you tune in all the time. This isn't the only show of the day. Normal pod, 8:30 after every league and weekend game. We always do a pod. So that is going to be live later on this evening at 8:30 p.m. UK time. So in 2.5 hours, we'll be back talking to some of the guys about the game yesterday and looking ahead to the FA Cup game, which could actually be concluded as to who we will play by the time the pod comes to an end. So make sure you tune in for that at 8:30. But other than that, as always, a pleasure. Make sure you join and have a go at the Vieira signed shirt competition. Link is in the description. Buy a ticket for the raffle. But other than that, it's been a pleasure to speak to you guys as always. And yeah, I'll see you in a couple of hours for the podcast. But I'll see you again very soon. Oh, and last thing, massive thank you to Alexander Ruggiero for creating the Let's Talk Arsenal video. His links are in the description for any of you guys want an intro made. He doesn't usually do it for this type of thing, but he did. So maybe he'll make an exception for you guys. But check out his stuff. He's usually making them for like companies and stuff like that. So check him out. He's in the description. So is his Instagram. Thank you to Alex for making this outro and intro. I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.